Please! I said no. Sarah's voice trembled as the drunk man's grip tightened on her wrist, his breath hot against her face in the crowded bar. She glanced desperately around Murphy's tavern, searching for help, for anyone who might intervene. But the Friday night crowd seemed oblivious to her distress, lost in their own conversations and laughter. The man leaned closer, ignoring her obvious discomfort. "Come on, sweetheart. Don't be like that." Across the room, Jake Matthews clutched his jacket pocket, feeling the soft fabric of his twins' forgotten stuffed animals, Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles, that he'd been carrying since their afternoon at the park. He was a widowed father on his first night out in 2 years, drowning in grief and barely managing to hold his shattered life together. What Sarah didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know as she sat trapped and afraid, was that her rescue would come from the most unlikely hero, armed with nothing but children's toys and a broken heart, desperate to save someone else's pain. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you can't miss. Jake Matthews stood outside Murphy's tavern, clutching the door handle while his resolve wavered like a candle in the wind. The Friday evening crowd's laughter and clinking glasses filtered through the heavy wooden door, sounds that once would have been welcoming but now felt as foreign as a language he'd forgotten how to speak. "Come on, Jake," his brother Mike urged, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "It's been 2 years. Anna wouldn't want you hiding in that house forever." Jake's fingers unconsciously brushed against the wedding ring still adorning his finger. "I'm not hiding. I'm raising my kids. Emma and Lucas are with Mom tonight, and they practically pushed you out the door themselves," Mike chuckled. "Even 6-year-olds know their dad needs to start living again." With a deep breath that felt like his first in months, Jake pushed open the door. The tavern's warm lighting and rustic charm immediately transported him back to happier times when he and Anna would steal away for date nights, back when laughter came easily and the future stretched endlessly ahead. Now, at 35, he felt ancient among the vibrant crowd of 20 and 30-somethings celebrating the end of another work week. Mike guided him toward the bar, weaving through clusters of people. Jake's jacket pocket crinkled as he moved, and he reached inside to discover Mr. Buttons the bear and Princess Sparkles the unicorn, Emma and Lucas's beloved stuffed animals that he'd forgotten to remove after their afternoon trip to the park. The sight of the worn toys brought a bittersweet smile to his face, their presence somehow comforting in this unfamiliar social landscape. "2 beers," Mike called to the bartender, then turned to Jake. "See? This isn't so bad. Just relax and—" "Excuse me," I said no. The firm but polite voice cut through the ambient noise, drawing Jake's attention to a corner booth where a woman with shoulder-length auburn hair sat across from a man whose body language screamed aggression. Even from across the room, Jake could see her discomfort as she leaned away from her unwelcome companion. "Come on, sweetheart," the man slurred, his words thick with alcohol. "One dance won't kill you." "I'm here with friends, and I've asked you to leave me alone," the woman replied, her voice steady despite the obvious tension. "Please respect that." Jake's protective instincts, honed by 2 years of single parenthood and a lifetime of being raised to respect women, began stirring. Mike, following his gaze, started to stand. "Maybe we should—" The situation escalated as the drunk man reached across the table and grabbed the woman's arm. "Don't be such a prude. I'm buying you drinks." Without conscious thought, Jake was moving, his feet carrying him across the crowded floor. But instead of the confrontational approach his anger demanded, something unexpected happened. His hand found the stuffed animals in his pocket, and suddenly, the absurdity of his situation, a grown man carrying children's toys into a bar, sparked an idea so ridiculous it just might work. "Mr. Buttons?" Jake exclaimed in a high-pitched voice as he approached the booth, pulling out the teddy bear and holding it up like a puppet. "Have you seen my friend Sarah? I think she might be in trouble." The entire booth fell silent, the drunk man's grip loosening in confusion as Jake continued his impromptu performance. "Why, yes, Princess Sparkles," Jake replied to the unicorn in a slightly different voice. "I do believe that confused gentleman might need help finding his way home. Should we offer him directions?" The surrounding patrons began to take notice, some chuckling at the unexpected entertainment. The drunk man, suddenly aware of the growing audience and the sheer absurdity of being confronted by a man with stuffed animals, released the woman's arm and sat back, his face reddening with embarrassment. "I think our new friend here just got a little lost," Jake continued in his normal voice, addressing the man directly, but maintaining the gentle, almost paternal tone he used with his children. "The exit's right over there, and I'm sure there's a nice quiet place for you to sober up." The combination of public attention, Jake's unexpected approach, and his calm but unmistakably firm presence proved too much for the intoxicated harasser. Mumbling something about crazy people, he stumbled away from the booth and disappeared into the crowd. Jake turned to the woman, suddenly self-conscious about his unconventional rescue method. She was even more beautiful up close, with intelligent green eyes that sparkled with a mixture of relief and amusement. A warm smile spread across her face as she looked from Jake to the stuffed animals still in his hands. "Well," she said, her voice rich with barely contained laughter, "that was definitely the most creative rescue I've ever witnessed. I'm Sarah, and I believe you just saved me with a teddy bear and a unicorn." Jake felt his cheeks warm as he tucked Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles back into his jacket pocket, suddenly aware of how ridiculous he must look. But Sarah's genuine smile and the sparkle of amusement in her green eyes put him at ease. "I'm Jake," he said, extending his hand. "And I have to admit, that wasn't exactly how I planned to spend my first night out in 2 years." "First night out in 2 years?" Sarah raised an eyebrow as she shook his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "That explains the emergency stuffed animal arsenal." Jake laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in months. "My 6-year-old twins would be mortified if they knew I carried their precious companions into a bar, though they'd probably approve of the rescue mission." "Twins?" Sarah's face lit up with genuine interest. "What are their names?" "Emma and Lucas. They're the reason for the stuffed animals, and pretty much the reason for everything else in my life." Jake slid into the booth across from her, surprised by how natural it felt to sit and talk with this woman he'd just met. "What about you? Do you have children?" "No children of my own, but I'm a kindergarten teacher at Riverside Elementary," Sarah replied, her voice carrying the warmth he was beginning to associate with everything about her. "I spend my days with 23, 5, and 6-year-olds, so I completely understand the magical power of stuffed animals. Your approach back there reminded me exactly why I love working with kids. Sometimes, the most creative solutions are the most effective ones." Jake found himself leaning forward, drawn in by her enthusiasm. "You're a kindergarten teacher? That explains why you handled that situation so calmly. I bet you've dealt with worse behavior in your classroom." "You'd be surprised," Sarah laughed, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "Though most of my students are better at taking no for an answer than that gentleman was." Their conversation flowed with an ease that surprised them both. Jake found himself sharing stories about the twins, how Emma was determined to become a veterinarian after rescuing a wounded butterfly, and how Lucas had recently announced his intention to marry his stuffed unicorn when he grew up. Sarah matched his stories with tales from her classroom, describing the innocent wisdom of children and the daily reminders they provided about finding joy in simple things. "Being a single parent must be incredibly challenging," Sarah said softly, her expression growing more serious. "How long have you been on your own with them?" Jake's hand unconsciously moved to his wedding ring. 2 years. My wife Anna died from cancer when the twins were 4. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. But they're amazing kids. They keep me going." Sarah's eyes filled with compassion. I'm so sorry for your loss. Anna must have been an incredible woman to have raised such creative, caring children, and to have such a devoted husband. She was, Jake said simply, surprised by how good it felt to talk about Anna without the usual crushing weight of grief. What about you? Any ex-husbands I should know about before we continue this conversation? Sarah's expression darkened slightly. 1. Recently finalized divorce, and let's just say it wasn't the amicable kind. He made it very clear that he thought my career was a waste of my potential, and that I was too focused on other people's children. She shook her head. Sorry, I don't usually dump my personal drama on strangers who rescue me with stuffed animals. Hey, fair's fair, Jake smiled. You listen to my story. Besides, any man who doesn't appreciate a woman who dedicates her life to teaching children doesn't deserve you. They talked for another hour, discovering shared values about family, kindness, and the importance of putting children first. Jake learned that Sarah volunteered at the local animal shelter on weekends and had a rescue cat named Fitzgerald. Sarah discovered that Jake worked in community outreach, helping connect families with resources, a job he'd taken after Anna's death because he wanted to help others navigate difficult times. As the evening progressed, Jake felt something he hadn't experienced since Anna's death: genuine happiness in another person's company. Not the polite contentment he managed during work functions or family gatherings, but real joy. Sarah seemed to feel it too, her laughter becoming more frequent, and her questions more personal. I hate to say this, Jake said, pulling out his phone, but I should probably get your number before something else interrupts us. I have a feeling my stuffed animal rescue services might be needed again. Sarah was reaching for her purse to get her phone when Jake's device buzzed urgently in his hand. The caller ID made his blood run cold. Emma's babysitter. Emergency. I have to take this, he said, his voice tight with sudden panic as he answered. Mrs. Rodriguez, what's wrong? Jake, I'm so sorry to call, but we're at the hospital. Emma had some kind of allergic reaction and Jake was already standing, his face pale. Which hospital? Is she okay? St. Mary's Emergency. She's stable, but they want to keep her for observation. Lucas is here with me and he's scared. I'm on my way. Jake ended the call and looked at Sarah with genuine anguish. I'm so sorry. My daughter is in the hospital and I have to go. Of course, go. Sarah stood as well. I hope she's okay. Jake was already moving toward the exit, his mind racing with worry and the terrible realization that he hadn't gotten Sarah's contact information. In his panic, he called back over his shoulder. I'll find you again, I promise. But by the time he reached his car, he realized he didn't even know her last name. The fluorescent lights of St. Mary's Hospital cast an unforgiving glare over the pediatric emergency room as Jake rushed through the automatic doors, his heart hammering against his ribs. He found Mrs. Rodriguez in the waiting area, 6-year-old Lucas curled up in her lap, his small face streaked with dried tears. Where is she? Jake asked, dropping to his knees in front of them. Room 314, Mrs. Rodriguez replied, her weathered face creased with worry. The doctors say she's going to be fine, Jake. It was a reaction to that new lavender soap I used for bath time. I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was allergic. Jake gathered Lucas into his arms, feeling his son's small body tremble against his chest. It's not your fault, Mrs. Rodriguez. You couldn't have known. Dr. Martinez emerged from Emma's room 20 minutes later with reassuring news. Emma was stable, the reaction was under control, and she could go home the next morning after observation. Jake spent the night in an uncomfortable hospital chair, watching his daughter sleep, while Lucas dozed fitfully beside him, one small hand clutching his father's shirt. Daddy? Emma's voice was hoarse when she woke the next morning, her face still slightly swollen but her eyes bright and alert. Right here, sweetheart, Jake said, smoothing her hair. How are you feeling? Like a pufferfish, she said seriously, making Jake laugh despite his exhaustion. Mrs. Rodriguez said you were at a bar when I got sick. Did you have fun? Jake's thoughts immediately turned to Sarah. Her warm smile, their easy conversation, the way she'd made him feel human again for the first time in 2 years. I did, actually. I met a very nice lady. Lucas perked up from his makeshift bed on the adjacent chair. A lady? Was she pretty? Did she like you? She was a teacher, just like the ones at your school, Jake said carefully. And yes, I think she liked me. What's her name? Emma asked, her natural curiosity overriding her physical discomfort. Sarah, Jake replied, and then the crushing realization hit him again. But I don't know her last name, and I lost her phone number. Over the following week, as Emma recovered at home and things returned to their normal routine, Jake found himself thinking about Sarah constantly. He replayed their conversation over and over, remembering the way she'd lit up when talking about her students, how naturally she'd responded to his stories about the twins. He'd felt more like himself in those 2 hours than he had in 2 years. On Tuesday evening, after the twins were asleep, Jake drove back to Murphy's Tavern. The same bartender was working, but when Jake described Sarah, the man just shrugged. "Lot of people come through here, buddy. Sorry." Jake returned on Thursday night, then again on Saturday. Each time he felt more foolish, but couldn't shake the hope that she might be there too, looking for him. Meanwhile, the twins had begun to notice their father's restless energy. Emma, with the intuitive wisdom that seemed to come naturally to 6-year-olds, cornered him during breakfast on Sunday morning. "Daddy, you keep checking your phone and looking sad," she observed, spooning cereal into her mouth. "Is it because you miss the teacher lady?" "Sarah," Lucas added helpfully, "the one who made you smile." Jake set down his coffee cup, surprised by their perceptiveness. "I guess I do miss her. She was very kind, and talking to her reminded me that there are still good people in the world." "Did she make you laugh?" Emma asked. "She did." "Then we need to find her," Lucas declared, with the certainty only a child could muster. "Mommy used to make you laugh all the time, and then you got sad for a really long time. If this lady makes you laugh, we should find her." Emma nodded vigorously, her allergic reaction now just a memory as her natural enthusiasm returned. "It's like when we lost Mr. Buttons at the park last month. We didn't give up. We went back every day until we found him. Finding a person is different than finding a stuffed animal," Jake said gently. "But not impossible," Emma replied with 6-year-old logic. "You found us when we hid in the closet during hide-and-seek, and that was really hard." That evening, after Jake had tucked them into bed, he heard whispering from their room. When he crept closer to listen, he caught Emma's voice. "And then we'll go to every park and every store until we find Daddy's princess." "Operation Find Daddy's Princess," Lucas whispered back excitedly. Jake smiled despite himself. If his children were determined to help him find Sarah, maybe it was time to stop sitting around feeling sorry for himself and start actually looking. The next morning at breakfast, Emma and Lucas presented him with a crayon drawing of a woman with long hair and a big smile, holding hands with a stick figure man and 2 small children. "This is Sarah," Emma announced proudly. "We're going to show it to everyone until we find her. And when we do," Lucas added with unwavering confidence, "you're going to marry her and be happy again." Jake looked at his children's hopeful faces and felt his heart swell with love and possibility. Maybe they were right. Maybe it was time to start believing in happy endings again. The next morning, Jake sat at the kitchen table nursing his second cup of coffee when Emma and Lucas burst into the room with the enthusiasm only 6-year-olds could muster before 8 a.m. They had clearly been planning something, evidenced by the way they exchanged meaningful glances before Emma stepped forward as their designated spokesperson. "Daddy," she announced with the gravity of a military general, "we need to go to the library today for story time." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Since when are you two interested in library story time? You usually say it's for babies." "We're not babies anymore," Lucas said seriously. But we need to help you find your princess. She's not my— Jake began, but Emma cut him off. You said she's a teacher, and teachers love libraries. It's like their natural habitat, she explained with 6-year-old wisdom. Plus, we made a better picture of her. Lucas proudly held up a new crayon drawing that was remarkably detailed for a child's artwork. Sarah's auburn hair was carefully colored in orange and red, and Emma had added green circles for her eyes. At the bottom, in Lucas's careful printing, were the words, "Daddy's Princess Sarah." "We're going to show this to everyone," Emma declared, "and we'll tell them about how you saved her with our stuffed animals at the bar." Jake nearly choked on his coffee. "You absolutely cannot tell people I saved someone at a bar with your stuffed animals." "Why not?" Lucas asked innocently. "It's the best rescue story ever." An hour later, Jake found himself walking into the Riverside Public Library with a twin on each side, feeling like he was being led to his execution. The children's section buzzed with activity as parents settled into reading corners and librarians prepared for the weekly story time. Emma immediately approached the circulation desk, where a kind-looking woman with silver hair was checking in returned books. "Excuse me," Emma said politely, holding up their drawing. "Have you seen this lady? Her name is Sarah, and she's a teacher, and she made our daddy very happy." The librarian, whose name tag read Mrs. Chen, smiled warmly. "What a lovely picture. I'm afraid I don't recognize her, sweetie. Is she missing?" "Kind of," Lucas chimed in, apparently deciding that subtlety was overrated. "Our daddy saved her from a bad man at a bar using Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles. But then Emma got sick, and he had to leave, and now we can't find her, and he's sad again." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened as she looked at Jake, who felt his face burning with embarrassment. "It's a long story," he mumbled. "And obviously a very romantic one," Mrs. Chen said with a knowing smile. "I'll keep an eye out for any Sarahs who come in." "What does she look like besides the lovely portrait?" As story time began, Jake settled into a corner chair while the twins joined the circle of children on the colorful carpet. But instead of paying attention to the librarian reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar, Emma and Lucas took turns showing their drawing to other children and their parents. "That's my daddy," Emma announced to a mother sitting nearby, pointing to Jake. "He's looking for a princess named Sarah, who he saved with stuffed animals." Jake watched in horror as his 6-year-olds turned his love life into children's entertainment. But something unexpected happened. Instead of judgment, the other parents responded with warmth and understanding. "How sweet," one mother whispered to another. "It's nice to see a single dad putting himself out there again." "I know Sarah Rodriguez from my book club," offered another parent, "but she's married with 3 kids. There's Sarah Williams who teaches at Eastside Elementary," suggested someone else. "Blonde hair, though." By the time story time ended, Jake realized his children had inadvertently created a small neighborhood support network dedicated to finding his mysterious Sarah. Parents were offering to check with teacher friends, and even the librarian promised to mention it to her colleagues at other branches. After the library, the twins insisted on visiting Riverside Park, because teachers bring their classes here for field trips. Their next stop was Friendly's Family Restaurant, where Lucas loudly announced to their waitress that they were looking for Daddy's teacher princess who has pretty red hair and teaches kindergarten. The waitress, a teenager who clearly found the whole situation adorable, promised to ask around among her customers. As they drove home that afternoon, Jake felt a mixture of mortification and grudging admiration for his children's determination. Their complete lack of adult inhibitions was both embarrassing and refreshing. "Any luck today?" he asked, glancing in the rearview mirror at their hopeful faces. "Not yet," Emma said confidently, "but Mrs. Chen said she knows lots of teachers. And tomorrow, we're going to the playground at Sunset Elementary. And then the ice cream shop," Lucas added. "Because everyone goes to ice cream shops." Jake smiled despite himself. If Sarah was anywhere in this town, His children's grassroots campaign was going to find her. He just hoped he'd survive the public embarrassment of their well-intentioned matchmaking efforts. That night, as he tucked them into bed, Emma grabbed his hand. "Daddy, we're going to find her. I promise." "I know you are, sweetheart," Jake replied, surprised to realize he was actually beginning to believe it. Unknown to them all, across town, Sarah Coleman was finishing her evening volunteer shift at the Riverside Animal Shelter, wondering if she'd ever see the kind stranger with the stuffed animals again. The next afternoon, Jake found himself standing outside the Riverside Community Center with the twins, watching families stream through the glass doors for various activities. He'd been volunteering here every Tuesday for the past year, facilitating support group meetings for single parents, a commitment that had started as his therapist's suggestion and evolved into something genuinely meaningful. "Can we come with you today?" Emma asked, tugging on his jacket. "We promised to be good during your meeting. And we can keep looking for Sarah while you talk to the sad grown-ups," Lucas added, with typical 6-year-old bluntness. Jake chuckled. "They're not sad grown-ups, buddy. They're just people who need a little extra support, like we did when Mommy died." Inside the community center, Jake settled the twins in the adjacent children's playroom, where other single parents had brought their kids. The space buzzed with activity, children building with blocks, coloring at small tables, and playing dress-up in the corner. Jake watched through the glass partition as Emma and Lucas immediately began showing their drawing of Sarah to the other children. "Still searching for your mystery woman?" asked Michelle, a single mother of 2 who'd been attending the group for several months. Jake turned his attention to the circle of chairs where 8 other parents had gathered. "My kids have turned it into a full-scale operation. I'm equal parts embarrassed and impressed." "Kids have a way of cutting through adult complications," said David, a widowed father whose wife had died in a car accident. "Maybe they're onto something." As Jake facilitated the discussion about moving forward after loss, he couldn't help but think about his conversation with Sarah just 2 weeks earlier. She'd understood immediately when he mentioned the challenges of single parenthood, and her compassion had felt genuine rather than pitying. "Jake, you seem different today," observed Carmen, whose ex-husband had left when their son was diagnosed with autism. "More hopeful?" "I met someone," Jake admitted, surprised by his own honesty. "Briefly. And for the first time in 2 years, I remembered what it felt like to connect with another adult." The group listened as Jake shared the story of that night at Murphy's Tavern, carefully editing out his children's more embarrassing search tactics. What struck him as he spoke was how natural it felt to talk about Sarah, how the memory of their conversation still brought genuine warmth to his chest. Meanwhile, in another wing of the same building, Sarah Coleman was wrapping up her weekly literacy program for underprivileged children. The program had started 6 months ago as part of her community service requirement during her divorce proceedings, but it had quickly become the highlight of her week. "Miss Sarah!" called out 7-year-old Miguel, holding up a picture book. "Can you help me with this word?" Sarah knelt beside him, pointing to the challenging word. "Sound it out, Miguel. What letter does it start with?" As she worked with the children, Sarah found herself thinking about the single father she'd met that incredible night. The way he'd handled that difficult situation with such creativity and kindness had stayed with her. She'd returned to Murphy's Tavern twice, hoping to see him again, but had no luck. "Miss Sarah looks happy today," observed Lily, one of her regular students. "Did something good happen?" Sarah realized she'd been smiling while remembering Jake's ridiculous stuffed animal rescue. "I'm just happy to be here with all of you," she said, which was true, but not the complete truth. After the literacy program ended, Sarah gathered her materials while chatting with Maria Santos, the community center coordinator. "We've had such wonderful feedback about your program," Maria said. "The parents especially appreciate how you connect with their children. Speaking of parents, you should meet Jake Matthews sometime. He runs our single parents support group and has 2 adorable 6-year-olds. He's been volunteering here for a year now." Sarah's heart skipped. Jake Matthews? Do you know him? Lovely man. Lost his wife to cancer a couple years ago. He's really dedicated to helping other families navigate difficult times. Could it be the same Jake? Sarah tried to keep her voice casual. What does he look like? Tall, dark brown hair, kind eyes. His twins are absolutely precious. Emma and Lucas. They come sometimes when he can't find a sitter. Maria glanced at her watch. Actually, they're probably still here if you want to meet them. Sarah's pulse quickened. But before she could respond, Maria was called away by another staff member. By the time Sarah finished packing her supplies and made her way toward the meeting rooms, the hallway was empty, except for the janitor mopping the floors. Outside in the parking lot, Jake was buckling the twins into their car seats when Lucas made an announcement. Daddy? I told the other kids about Operation Find Daddy's Princess, and now they want to help too. That's wonderful, buddy, Jake said absently, checking his phone for the time. And Emma found out that Miss Judy knows a teacher named Sarah who works with kids who don't have enough books, Lucas continued excitedly. Jake's attention snapped to his son. What did you say? A teacher named Sarah, Emma chimed in. She comes here sometimes. We're getting closer, Daddy. As Jake drove home, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were indeed getting closer. Somewhere in this community, Sarah was living her life, possibly thinking about him the way he was thinking about her. Neither of them realized they had just missed each other by less than 10 minutes. Their separate volunteer work bringing them to the same building, like ships passing in the night. 2 weeks later, Jake stood in his bedroom holding up a medieval knight costume while Emma and Lucas bounced excitedly on his bed. The twins had spent the previous evening carefully attaching Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles to the costume's chest plate with safety pins, creating what they proudly called rescue hero armor. You look perfect, Daddy, Emma declared, adjusting the bear's position. Now everyone will know you're the stuffed animal knight. I can't believe I let you two talk me into this, Jake muttered, catching sight of himself in the mirror. The costume was actually well made, a silver tunic with a plastic chest plate, but the addition of children's toys made him look like a medieval jester. The costume contest theme is heroes, Lucas reminded him seriously. And you are a hero. You saved Sarah with these guys. He patted Princess Sparkles affectionately. The Riverside Elementary and Eastside Elementary Joint Fall Carnival was in full swing when they arrived. The school parking lot had been transformed into a wonderland of game booths, food trucks, and colorful decorations. Families in elaborate costumes wandered between attractions, while children's laughter filled the crisp October air. Wow, Emma breathed, taking in the scene. This is even better than last year. Jake adjusted the twins' matching Brave Squire costumes, complete with foam swords and paper crowns Emma had decorated with glitter. All right, my faithful squires, what's our mission? Win the costume contest, Lucas announced. And keep looking for Sarah, Emma added, never losing sight of their primary objective. They made their way through the carnival, stopping at various booths. Jake found himself relaxing as other parents complimented their creative family costume. The twins' enthusiasm was infectious, and for the first time in weeks, he wasn't thinking about his failed search for the mysterious teacher. Face painting! Emma pointed excitedly toward a booth decorated with colorful balloons. Can we get dragons painted on our faces? Please, Daddy, Lucas chimed in. Dragons are very heroic. Jake approached the face-painting station, noting the long line of children waiting their turn. Behind the small table sat a woman with auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail, carefully painting butterfly wings on a little girl's cheek. Something about her profile seemed familiar, but Jake couldn't quite place why. Next, the face painter called cheerfully, and Emma practically skipped forward. The woman looked up to greet her next customer, and time seemed to freeze. Green eyes met Jake's brown ones across the small table, and both adults stared in shock. Sarah? Jake whispered. Jake! Sarah's voice was barely audible, the paintbrush trembling in her hand. "You're Sarah!" Emma shrieked with joy so loud that half the carnival turned to look. "We found her, Daddy! We found your princess!" "Operation Find Daddy's Princess is complete," Lucas announced, pumping his foam sword in the air triumphantly. Sarah's face broke into a radiant smile as she looked from the twins to Jake, taking in their ridiculous but endearing costume. "Oh my goodness, you're the twins! And you still have Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles. We've been looking everywhere for you," Emma explained, climbing onto the chair in front of Sarah's table. "We went to the library and the park and the restaurant, and we showed your picture to everyone." "You made a picture of me?" Sarah asked, touched. Lucas proudly produced their now worn drawing from Jake's costume pocket. "See, we drew you with orange hair because Daddy said it was really pretty." Sarah's eyes welled up as she looked at the crayon portrait. "This is the most beautiful picture anyone has ever drawn of me." Jake finally found his voice. "I can't believe you're here. I went back to Murphy's looking for you, but—" "I did the same thing," Sarah admitted, setting down her paintbrush. "I was hoping I'd see you again." The magic of their reunion was temporarily interrupted by the growing line of impatient children waiting for face painting. Sarah quickly painted dragons on both twins' cheeks while they chattered excitedly about their search mission, telling her about every library, park, and ice cream shop they'd visited. "We never gave up," Emma said proudly, as Sarah added the final details to her dragon. "Just like when we lost Mr. Buttons at the park." "Your children are remarkable," Sarah told Jake, her voice warm with genuine admiration. "They're persistent and optimistic, and absolutely charming." "They get the persistence from their mother," Jake said softly, "and the optimism is all their own." When Sarah's volunteer shift ended an hour later, they spent the rest of the carnival together as a group. The twins insisted Sarah judge their performance in the costume contest, where they won first place in the Most Creative Family Costume category. They shared funnel cake and played carnival games, with Emma and Lucas treating Sarah like a long-lost family member. As the sun began to set and the carnival wound down, Jake and Sarah found themselves walking slightly behind the twins, who were comparing their carnival prizes. "I can't believe we found each other again," Jake said, pulling out his phone. "This time I'm getting your number properly." "And your last name," Sarah laughed, entering her contact information. "No more mystery searches required." Emma skipped back to them, her face glowing with happiness. "Daddy, can Sarah come to dinner at our house tomorrow?" "Emma, you can't just invite people," Jake began. "I'd love to," Sarah interrupted, smiling. "If that's okay with you." Looking at his children's beaming faces and feeling the warmth of possibility blooming in his chest, Jake nodded. "It's more than okay. It's perfect." As they walked toward the parking lot together, Jake felt like his family was complete for the first time in 2 years. The twins had been right all along. Sometimes you just had to believe in happy endings. Sarah woke up the next morning with a lightness in her chest she hadn't felt in months. Sunlight streamed through her bedroom curtains as she lay in bed, replaying every moment from the carnival. Jake's shocked expression when he recognized her, the twins' triumphant celebration, the easy way their conversation had flowed as if no time had passed at all. Tonight, she would have dinner with Jake and his children, and for the first time since her divorce, the future felt bright with possibility. Her phone rang at 8:47 a.m., jarring her from her happy reverie. The caller ID showed her lawyer's name, and Sarah's stomach clenched with familiar anxiety. "Sarah, I'm sorry to call so early." Patricia Martinez's voice was grim. "We have a problem. Richard's attorney filed an emergency motion yesterday." Sarah sat up in bed, her happiness evaporating like morning mist. "What kind of motion?" "He's contesting the divorce settlement. He wants to freeze your bank accounts and is demanding half of your teacher's pension. But that's not the worst part." Patricia's pause felt ominous. "He's threatening to file a complaint against you with the school district." "For what?" Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. He claims he has evidence of you engaging in inappropriate conduct that reflects poorly on your position as an educator. Something about meeting strange men in bars. Sarah's blood turned to ice. He has someone watching me. His friend Marcus was apparently at Murphy's Tavern that night you met Jake. Richard's twisting the story, claiming you were drinking excessively and engaging in questionable behavior with an unknown man. He's threatening to present it as evidence that you're unfit to work with children. The room spun around Sarah as the implications crashed over her. Her teaching career was everything to her, not just her livelihood, but her identity, her purpose. The thought of her students, their trusting faces, being told their teacher was somehow inappropriate, made her feel physically ill. "Can he actually do this?" she asked weakly. "He can file the complaint, and the district would have to investigate. Even if they find no merit to his claims, the accusation alone could damage your reputation. And, with your divorce not yet finalized, any negative attention could affect the settlement." After hanging up, Sarah sat on the edge of her bed, staring at Jake's contact information in her phone. The memory of their easy conversation, his gentle strength with his children, the way he'd made her laugh, it all felt like it belonged to another person, another life where happiness was possible. By afternoon, the weight of her decision sat like lead in her stomach. She knew what she had to do, even as it broke her heart. When Jake called to confirm dinner plans, his voice warm and excited, Sarah forced herself to deliver the words that would shatter both their dreams. "Jake, I need to be honest with you. Last night was wonderful, but I'm not ready for this." The silence on the other end stretched painfully. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not ready for a relationship. My divorce was complicated, and I have a lot to figure out about my life before I can think about dating anyone." The lies tasted bitter on her tongue. "Sarah, if this is about moving too fast, we can take our time. There's no pressure." "No, you don't understand." Sarah closed her eyes, forcing herself to sound convincing. "I thought I was ready, but seeing you again made me realize I'm not. I need space to figure things out on my own." "Did I do something wrong?" "The twins? They can be overwhelming." "The twins are wonderful," Sarah said quickly, her voice cracking slightly. "You're wonderful. This isn't about you. It's about me not being ready for what you and your children deserve." Another long pause. When Jake spoke again, his voice was quiet and hurt. "If that's what you need, then I understand. But Sarah, if you change your mind—" "I won't," Sarah whispered. "I'm sorry, Jake. Please tell Emma and Lucas that I think they're amazing children." After ending the call, Sarah collapsed onto her couch and cried, for the relationship she was sacrificing, for the children who had been so excited about their teacher princess, and for the man who'd rescued her twice now, only to be pushed away by circumstances beyond his control. A week later, Sarah's fears proved justified. The school district received Richard's complaint, and although her principal assured her it was likely frivolous, the investigation process began. Sarah found herself packing her classroom belongings as a precautionary measure, while the district reviewed the allegations. Standing in her empty classroom, surrounded by boxes of books and art supplies, Sarah thought about Jake's children and wondered if she'd made the right choice. Outside her window, she could see other teachers arriving for the new school week, their lives continuing normally while hers felt suspended in limbo. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We still looking for you. Daddy sad again. Emma and Lucas." Sarah stared at the message until her vision blurred with tears, knowing she'd broken not just Jake's heart, but those of two innocent children who'd believed in fairy tale endings. The next morning brought an unusual conspiracy between 6-year-old twins determined to save their father's happiness. Emma and Lucas had spent the previous night whispering their plan after Jake tucked them into bed, and now they approached him with the innocent confidence that only children possessed when they knew they were right. "Daddy, we want to see Sarah's classroom," Emma announced over breakfast, stirring her cereal with purposeful determination. Jake's chest tightened at the mention of Sarah's name. A week had passed since her painful rejection, and he'd retreated into the familiar numbness that had sustained him through the first months after Anna's death. "Emma, we talked about this. Sarah needs space. But we want to see where she teaches," Lucas insisted. "You always say we should thank people who are nice to us, and she was really nice at the carnival." Jake studied his children's earnest faces, seeing something deeper than simple curiosity in their expression. They'd been unusually quiet since learning that Sarah wouldn't be joining them for dinner, and he suspected they were processing their own disappointment alongside his. "All right," he said finally. "We'll drive by East Side Elementary, but we're not bothering her. Just a quick look." An hour later, they pulled into the school parking lot during what should have been the middle of a regular Tuesday. Instead, they found Sarah loading boxes into her car, her movements mechanical and defeated. Even from a distance, Jake could see the sadness that seemed to radiate from her entire being. "She's moving boxes," Lucas observed, with the sharp perception children often displayed. "Like when we moved out of our old house after Mommy died." Emma was already unbuckling her seatbelt. "Something's wrong. She looks like you did when you were really sad." Before Jake could stop them, both twins were out of the car and running towards Sarah. She looked up as they approached, and Jake saw her face transform, surprise giving way to joy, then quickly shifting to something that looked almost like guilt. "Emma! Lucas!" Sarah dropped to her knees as they reached her, accepting their enthusiastic hugs despite her obvious emotional turmoil. "What are you doing here?" "We came to see your classroom," Emma said, then stepped back to study Sarah's face with 6-year-old directness. "Why are you crying? And why do you have boxes like when people move away?" Jake approached slowly, his protective instincts warring with respect for Sarah's earlier request for space. "We don't want to bother you. The kids just wanted to—" He stopped mid-sentence as he really looked at her. "Sarah, what's happening? Why are you packing?" The flood of emotions across Sarah's face, relief, sadness, fear, and something that looked like desperation, told Jake this wasn't about their relationship. This was something bigger, something that had driven her to push him away. "My ex-husband," Sarah said quietly, her voice breaking. "He's contesting our divorce and filed a complaint with the school district about that night we met. He's twisting everything, making it sound like I was behaving inappropriately. The district is investigating, and I've been placed on administrative leave." The pieces clicked into place for Jake with startling clarity. "That's why you said you weren't ready. You were protecting us." Sarah nodded, tears flowing freely now. "I couldn't let my problems destroy your family's reputation. You have the twins to think about." "She was protecting us?" Emma asked, her voice small but fierce. "That's not fair. Sarah's the best teacher ever." Lucas crossed his arms with righteous indignation. "Her mean ex-husband is lying. You saved Sarah from a bad man, remember? You're a hero." Jake felt something shift inside him, the same protective instinct that had driven him to intervene that night at Murphy's Tavern, but magnified by love and righteous anger. "Sarah, what if I told you that you don't have to fight this alone?" Over the next hour, sitting in Sarah's empty classroom with the twins coloring quietly in the corner, Jake learned the full extent of her ex-husband's manipulation. Using his connections from his community outreach work, he began making phone calls. By the end of the week, something remarkable had happened. Parents whose children Sarah had taught began contacting the school district. Fellow teachers wrote character references. Jake organized a letter-writing campaign that showcased Sarah's dedication and integrity. The twins, with their typical 6-year-old persistence, had convinced their grandmother to help them create a book titled "How Our Teacher Princess Saved Our Daddy," filled with crayon drawings and innocent but powerful testimonials about Sarah's kindness. The school board hearing took place on a Thursday evening. Jake gave an impassioned speech about Sarah's character, describing how she'd rescued him and his children from their grief by showing them how to hope again. When the twins presented their book, dressed in their rescue hero costumes, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Sarah was not only reinstated, but offered a promotion to curriculum coordinator. Her ex-husband's manipulations were exposed, and she was finally free from his control. 6 months later, Jake proposed at Murphy's Tavern during a community fundraiser they were co-hosting. The twins held a banner reading, "Will you be our new mommy?" while Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles sat as honored guests at the head table. Sarah said yes, and the entire community celebrated the union of two people who'd learned that sometimes the greatest love stories begin with the smallest acts of courage, witnessed by children who never stopped believing in happy endings. Their wedding planning included one non-negotiable requirement. Mr. Buttons and Princess Sparkles would serve as ring-bearers, ensuring that the stuffed animal heroes who'd started it all would see their mission through to its perfect conclusion. I hope you enjoyed that story. Make sure to like and subscribe so that you do not miss out on tomorrow's story. 2 of my favorite stories are on the screen now for you to enjoy.